Sous vide for beginners. I'm Urvashi, my blog is TwoSleevers.com, and I'm going to show you how to make a basic but amazing sous vide steak with as few ingredients and equipment as possible. For people who have been doing sous vide a long time and you've got all your equipment, I gotta be honest with you, you're not gonna get much out of this video. This video is for people who just kind of don't even know where to start and are not looking to put in hundreds of dollars before they figure out if they want to do this. So here's all the equipment that I will be using. I'm using a sous vide stick. This happens to be an Instant Pot one. They've come up with one that's slimmer, and I would get that one. I also use an Anova, and I'll link to all of that. I'm gonna use a Ziploc bag. I'm gonna use a binder clip, okay? So surely everybody has this. I'm gonna start with salt, pepper, and olive oil. And I went into my garden and just picked whatever herbs I could find in the middle of winter, although it's Texas. So I have rosemary, I have oregano, and I have sage. So sage, rosemary, oregano. You can put whatever you want. You could put nothing. You could put just bay leaves. You can do whatever, okay? I'm gonna just put some oil on my steak on both sides. I like lots of pepper. You can put salt. We will repeat this on the other side. I know many of you are gonna ask me about this gravity grinder. I'm gonna post an affiliate link to it at the bottom. It really saves me. One, it's one-handed, and two, when I'm hurting, I don't actually need to grind anything. Okay, so we're gonna rub this in here. I'm gonna take my baggie. It's a double. I should have done this earlier. I didn't. Hey, you're gonna be in this situation. Please do not write to me and tell me how not to use my mouth. I'm feeding me, I'm feeding my husband and my dog. And if they don't like my mouth on it, they can feed themselves. So you decide what you need to do. Anyway, bag is open. I'm gonna put this in here. This is a plain Ziploc baggie. Nothing fancy. And then I'm gonna throw these herbs in here and I'm going to set this bag aside. You basically need a pot. Now you could go buy an 8-quart Rubbermaid or whatever you want. But if you have something like this, even if it's just a deep soup pot at home, you can use that. But the reason I use this is because A, the pot's out of the way, B, the bottom is insulated, and C, I feel like it holds heat a bit better, and if I have to move it, I can just pick this up and move it rather than having to mess with a hot pot. Sometimes if you think about it, you know, you could be cooking for hours, and if you ever need to move something, having this makes it really convenient for me. A lot of people will tell you you need to go out and get a vacuum sealer, and you know, honestly, I have a vacuum sealer. My husband did a fantastic review of the Food Saver, but I don't typically use it because if something involves a whole lot of work, I'm just not gonna do it. I know myself, it's just not gonna get cooked that day. So here's what I'm doing. I'm taking a clean paper towel. I'm cleaning out the seal here because we want the seal to be tight. You're not trying to boil your steak with water in it. And notice I'm using something with a double seal so that if one of my seals fails, I'll have the other. And then you're gonna use what's called the water displacement method. So water is gonna displace the air. That's all you need to know about it. So here's what I'm doing. Basically what you would do is you would put this in the water, and as you put it down there, further and further down, all the air is coming out of here. Quite the vacuum. There's no water in there. I've sealed it. I'm going to squeeze out the last of the air. If you ask me if it's vital to get all the air out, I have not found it to be the case. As you get to be an expert, this may become important. What you don't want is you don't want pockets where the meat does not touch the sides, okay? So you see how mine touches it completely? That is very, very important, okay? You want this to touch. Does it have to be a perfect seal? No. And then what I typically do, this is where the little clip comes in handy. I take this and I clip it to the side. Whoop, not that way. Let's try again. I take this clip. See, this is where my RA really is a handicap. Okay, this keeps it from wandering all over the place. Now, I have a couple of choices here. I could go buy magnets to hold this down, and down the road you're gonna want to, or you could put a metal trivet on it. Let me show you how that works. Okay, or I could just use a wooden spoon, like so, the spurtle that I love, and push it down, and it holds it in place. Okay, let's talk about this little stick. This thing goes up and down. Okay, so you can adjust to the height of your pot. See these little circulators? You want water to come above the little circulator jobby, okay? So you put this on here, slide it down, and then look, you don't actually have to fasten it. It's not gonna go anywhere. You could just leave it there. If you would like to fasten it, feel free. There's 3 things you need to know about. One, this stick has a minimum and maximum mark on it. That minimum and maximum mark tells you how much water you need in it, okay? So the water has to come up from below. The only thing you need to know about sous vide is temperatures and time, okay? So it's gonna depend on the thickness, and you'll get more experience with this. But this is about, I would say, a 2-inch thickness. And so for this, it's probably gonna take close to 2 hours. The way you would do this is for rare, you would do 120 degrees for steak. For medium rare, 134. For medium well, 150. And for really well done, 160. My suggestion to you is do what I do, start at 134-ish, 133, 134, and then you can always cook it for longer if you like. So essentially, I press this, and I'm gonna set this to 134, so I increase the time. I press it again, the time flashes. I'm gonna reduce this down to 2 hours, and I'm going to press start. I'm just using the Instant Pot as a holder. We'll talk about whether or not you can use the Ultra separately. Okay, so again, to remind you, on the steak, what you want is for this to be super flat, no air. While that's heating up, let me tell you the difference between vacuum packing and displacement. It's a little bit geeky, but bear with me. When I'm doing this, you see all I'm trying to do is push the water out so that my steak is in direct contact with the plastic bag, which means it's going to be in direct contact with the water, okay? That's all I'm doing. I'm seasoning it, I'm putting it in here, it's going to be in direct contact. When I vacuum pack it, however, the vacuum is going to insert pressure, and that pressure is going to cause the cell walls of the beef, of the meat, to break down a little bit. I personally never vacuum pack seafood because the texture of it is already so delicate that you don't want to burst the vacuum packing with it. So in that case, what's going to happen is the cell walls break down a little bit. Any kind of marinade or seasoning you have is going to penetrate a little bit better, but it might lend a slightly different texture. Here's where you might want to vacuum bag it. Let's say that you go to Costco and you buy a bunch of steak, or you go to your whatever in your country is the wholesale place, and you buy a bunch of steak or a bunch of chicken, and you want to go ahead and freeze it. Well, in a situation like that, what I do is I'll create exactly this kind of a mix. I'll decide this one's going to be, you know, a Thai chicken thing, this one's going to be a steak thing, this one's going to be a jerk chicken thing, and then I'll create the marinades and I'll put it in a bag, and at that point I vacuum bag it. The vacuum bagging is going to break it down a little bit, but it's going to help freeze much better. And then when I'm ready, I just thaw it in the fridge overnight, and then I can dump the thing with the marinade straight into the container. So I do use vacuum bagging if I'm going to freeze it, but if I'm going to just cook a fresh piece of meat, I don't usually vacuum bag. So push this down into the water, let the water displacement method create a closed seal. Press it over here, press down a little bit more, close your seal tight. Now you can leave it here. If you like, you can fasten it to the side with a clip, which I like to do so that if I move it, it stays. This is an excellent time to put a spoon or something to hold it down. We're going to leave this be, and we're going to come back in 2 hours, and at that point I'm going to show you how to sear the steak. Okay, so it's 1:34, time's up. We're going to have a look at the steak. You can see from looking at it that it is cooked super evenly everywhere. Let me put this out here. Okay, see that? See how the color is the same all the way through on this side and on this side. What I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to very carefully open this and take a quick read on the steak. Here we go. 132, okay. All right, so I'm going to close this up because I don't want to let all the heat go. So essentially this is what you want to do. You want to seal the bag, unseal the bag, and you want to take the temperature. This is the other reason why I like using Ziploc bags. If it's vacuum packed, you have to stick the thermometer through the plastic, which is not good because then all the juices leak out. So you really don't have a good way to tell if it's vacuum packed. Another reason to go with the cheap method. The steak is technically cooked, but it isn't that attractive. Most people want a brown sear mark, and it also tastes better. So here's what we're gonna do. One thing I want you to remember is that this was cooked at about 130. So any marinade that you have in there, juices that you have in there are super tasty, but to be on the safe side, you want to heat them up. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the steak out of here. I'm going to put it in this. This is my Mealthy non-stick pan. I did a review for this if you'd like to do it. The reason I like using this one is I'm going to whisk in some butter into the sauce, and I can use metal on this pan without hurting it. You know, butter isn't the ideal thing to use in this situation just because the pan is so hot, but I like to think of it as brown butter, and I just do it. Induction tops don't like when you do that. As this melts, I'm going to use a set of tongs, and I'm going to pull the steak out, leaving as much of the juice back there as I can. And I like to use the herbs in here. Some people do, some people don't. The trick here is going to be to do it super fast and not let it brown. Sorry, not let it cook, because it's already kind of cooked. So you might choose to do a little bit more, a little bit less. And at this point, you might also want to lift it and hold it on the side so that you let the sides crisp, the fat on the sides crisp. Now, if you want to add some herbs for a fresh pop of flavor, this would be a good time to use it. So we cooked with some, but you can also add some in here. Let me move this aside. Okay, I have a piece of advice for you. So if you're just learning sous vide, undercook the steak quite a bit, because the sear is a possibility to overcook it. So undercook it a little bit, and then you can sear it, and then the temperature won't change that much, and you'll still be able to have it fairly rare or whatever you need. Okay, I'm picking this up. So if you have an induction top, do it at 400 something, because really you need every last bit of the heat. I just poured the stuff in. This is a good time to put in a little bit additional butter and let it melt. Sometimes if I want more sauce, I cheat and put in a little bit of water. Pour the sauce in here and leave it to the side, and then when you're ready, just kind of moisten the steak with it and do it. And you have a perfect steak. That is how easy it is. Don't let people complicate sous vide for you. It does not have to be complicated. You don't need $100 worth of equipment. I'm Urvashi. My blog is TwoSleevers.com. Thank you for watching. I hope that was helpful.